Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai. Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiyo Ki Jai. Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai. Jai Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jai Shri Lacey Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sada Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Srila Surup Damodar Roy Ramananda Adi Gaur Parsada Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Vadashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jai Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tise Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtatara Shata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And my Dandavat Pranams to all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavas. Do one thing. Just take you 1 second. I just made some juice and I put it in. I have to put it in the fridge, otherwise it'll go off. So it's sitting on my table. And it's orange colored inside of a chocolate container. So you can just take that and stick it in the fridge, my fridge. Yes. Now, we were talking yesterday how Baladev Prabhu, he can give this prem, but he leaves it for Krishna to distribute. I remember we were in Fiji with Sri Gurudev on Advaita Acharya's appearance day. And yeah, I just remember that Gurudev was saying each member of the Panchatattva can give this prem, including Advaita Acharya, even though we read that Advaita Acharya can't give this prem, right? But Gurudev was saying they can give. So I think it's like Baladev Prabhu can give. If anyone can give, he can. But he leaves it for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to do in the mood of seva. So, where did we leave off? Krishna, Krishna. Yes, and then about the pot. Okay. Here we go. So, the next section is titled His Brilliant, Unparalleled Donation. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, he can distribute Raja Prem, and especially Parakiya Bhav, Paramur love, which is also called Unnata Ujvala Rasa. Now Gurudev is going into this subject of Unnata Ujvala Rasa. Where is this term mentioned? Unnata Ujvala Rasa. Huh? Yes.
So that's in Srila Marga, Rupa Goswami's.
What?
Sri Rupa Goswami's Lalit Marga.
I didn't hear that. What?
Lalit Madhava.
Oh, Lalit Madhava. Yes. That's right. In the introduction. And the famous gathering at Namacharya Haridas Thakur's residence, Siddhabakul, that famous gathering where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there this was after Mahaprabhu had come there after bathing and saw the verse that Rupa Goswami had composed, stuck in the, we call that?
Thatched roof.
The thatched roof, yes. Yeah, that was what had happened.
I hope.
Can you sit here so that I can see you better?
Yeah.
Because then I have to turn
Oh,
to see you.
why do you want to see me?
Because I like you. I like to see you.
Okay.
So when Mahaprabhu saw that verse, then Rupa Goswami was away, but he suddenly arrived and saw Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu saw him, and then he gave him a love slap. How did you know my heart? You know, that was the verse that Mahaprabhu was reciting in the Rath Yatra. And Rupa Goswami, you know, understood the meaning, but nobody else except Swarup Damodar. Only those two persons understood why was Mahaprabhu reciting this verse, which was pertaining to ordinary, mundane relationship between a man and a woman. A romantic, poetical description of her feelings, how she used to feel when she was young, and how they met on the bank of this river, and how the whole atmosphere was favorable for their sweet moods, right? But that was a mundane poetry. And so others couldn't understand, why is Mahaprabhu doing this? But Rupa Goswami understood that actually Mahaprabhu, in the mood of Srimati Radhika at Kurukshetra, was feeling exactly in this way, but not. He wrote a corresponding verse for Srimati Radhika, remembering in their youth, in Vrindavan, and how Krishna stole her heart and played the fifth note. All of these things are mentioned in Rupa Goswami's verse. Such beautiful poetry. So Mahaprabhu read that, and he immediately understood that Rupa Goswami had, somehow or other, he had entered into Mahaprabhu's heart to be able to see and understand exactly what were the moods of Mahaprabhu when he was expressing the other verse. So then Mahaprabhu came the next day to where Rupa Goswami was, and he had a group with him, and Ramananda Roy was in that group. Yes. And now there was like an examination period for Rupa Goswami, because these personalities were his superiors and so learned and so advanced. And Gurudev said, Rupa Goswami, the boy Rupa Goswami. And I don't know how old he was exactly, but, you know, he felt like that. And he felt shy, actually. He felt shy to recite these verses. But in the beginning, there was also the verse that Rupa Goswami had written regarding the holy name of Krishna, the two syllables, Krishna. Tunde Tandavani, Ratam Vitanute, Tundavali Labdai. How when the name Krishna is pronounced, these two syllables, then I want to have millions of ears to hear it. And I want to have millions of tongues. And when the name of Krishna enters into the core of my heart, it completely conquers over all my senses, and my senses become inert. Such power. And then the question is asked at the end of that verse, I don't know how much nectar is in these two syllables, Krishna. So in this way, Rupa Goswami was called upon to recite these verses, and Ramananda Roy was asking him, so what is your introductory verse for your dramas? We heard you're writing these dramas, you know. Oh, so what is your introductory verse? Who is your Ishtadeva to whom you're dedicating this, you know? And then Rupa Goswami was very embarrassed to try to recite in front of all these personalities. But that was the verse, Anarpita Charim Chirat. Huh? That was the verse. And you know, in that verse, Mahaprabhu's name is told at the end of the verse. As who? Sachinandan. Right? But he's saying that Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunaya Vatirna Kalo. For a very, very long time, this has not been given. Samarpaitum. Anarpita means it has not been given. Anarpita. For how long? Chirim Chirat. Very long, long time. And that means our calculations of 8.6 billion years since his previous appearance has not been given. So Rupa Goswami is capturing the essence of what is being given, how long it has been since it's been given, how high it is, what is being given. So he said, Karunayavatirna Kalo, out of his Karunayavatirna, out of his Karunya, he has avatirna, he has descended in Kali, in the age of Kali. Karunayavatirna Kalo. Now the next line says, Samarpaitum, to give. In order to give. Samarpaitum. And here is now what we're going to be hearing from Gurudev. Unnata Ujjvala Rasa Sva Bhakti Shriyam. That line. So here, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, he can distribute Braja praying. He can do it because he's Krishna. So he can distribute Braja praying, and especially Parakiya Bhav, Paramur mood, Paramur love, which is also called Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. So remember the other day we were reading, I read the statement, the answer that Gurudev gave to Yashodanandan Prabhu, who was interviewing Gurudev and asking him, what is your vision of your society, International Pure Bhakti Yoga Society? Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Giridhari, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai. You know, and that's an amazing answer that Gurudev gave about ultimately to give this Parakiya Bhav. That is the ultimate purpose of the society. This Parakiya Rasa, right, which Rupa Goswami has fully substantiated and described, and how it is absolutely different than the ordinary, mundane Parakiya. Why? Because Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, and his Swarup Shakti in the form of Srimati Radhika and her expansions. Their love is absolutely pure and spotless and exalted and worshipable. But the mundane Parakiya is abominable. So, Gurudev is now explaining that especially Krishna himself can distribute Parakiya Bhav, which is also called Unnata Ujvala Rasa. Now Gurudev explains, what does Unnata mean? Unnata means the highest. Unnata, most elevated. Unnata. And Ujvala means brilliantly shining. Ujvala. Unnata Ujvala Rasa. And the rasa refers to the taste of a specific relationship with Krishna. So these three words, Unnata Ujvala Rasa. Now you know that Rupa Goswami, he wrote an entire book about Ujvala Rasa. What's the title?
Ujvala Nilamani.
Yes. Ujvala Nilamani. And Nilamani means what?
Mani is jewel.
Yes.
Blue jewel.
The bluish jewel. Ujvala, shining, the radiant, shining, bluish jewel, who is Krishna. So that Ujvala, shining jewel, is most shining when he is surrounded by his Brajagopis. So the
Like
whole...
light. If you have a faceted gem and then when light hits
Yeah.
it, so that you're comparing like the gopis to the light, and that makes Krishna shine more.
Yeah, he's a gemstone and shining. So the whole subject matter of Madhurya Rasa, that is the treatise. That is the ultimate treatise by Rupa Goswami. And it's the sequel to which book? Yes. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is the basis of understanding the science of rasa, and all the 12 rasas are put forward in that book. But in order for the devotees who are eligible to taste Ujvala Madhurya Rasa, he wrote an entire gigantic book, Ujvala Nilamani. So now, Gurudev is telling that the brilliance of Unnata Ujvala Rasa is unparalleled. The brilliance of it. And it is this love, it is this Unnata Ujvala Rasa, it is this love that all of our acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya have come to this world to teach. We heard this when Gurudev spoke this in Australia. We were there. And we somewhat understand. But to truly understand the significance of what Gurudev is saying, because he's now embarking upon a world mission to give this. So he is very clearly specifying what it is. And I just told, when he was interviewed at the very end of his mission in 2010 in Mauritius, that's what he told. So, this Unnata Ujvala Rasa, this is what our acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya have come to this world to teach. Our acharyas did not come to taste what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to taste, but to give this same rasa which he came to distribute. Now here comes the important point to understand. Mahaprabhu is coming to taste, but there's also a distribution. So one has to understand. Gurudev is going on. He's saying the distribution of Unnata Ujvala Rasa. Yes, Unnata Ujvala Rasa. The distribution of Unnata Ujvala Rasa is the main reason for his advent. But it is not the foremost supreme reason. Yes, it is one of the main reasons. There are two. the distribution of Unnata Ujjvala Ras, is the main reason for his advent, but not the foremost, supreme reason. It is the primary external reason. Remember? There's two, internal, external, and then in each of those, there's two, primary and secondary. So see, he's saying it is the primary external reason. As mentioned above, the primary internal reason was to taste Radha's mood, and the second was to answer the call of Advaita Acharya. So those are the primary. And Mahaprabhu, he wanted to distribute that prema upon the jivas, which is rare even for Brahma, Shankar, and Narada. But he wanted to distribute that prema upon the jivas. Although it's so rare, even for Brahma, Shankar, and Narada. Imagine, it's rare for them. And how exalted are those personalities? And yet Mahaprabhu wanted to distribute this rarest, topmost prema that even for them, it's very difficult for them to attain. But Mahaprabhu wanted to distribute this. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, which can only be accomplished by the power of Krishna in the form of Mahaprabhu. No other way. Similarly, all our acharyas, like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Krishna Das Kaviraj, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Shyamananda Prabhu, Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasa Acharya, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj did not come only to preach the glories of chanting the holy name, for this can be given by the associates of Mahavishnu. This is the thing. And that's what Gurudev told in his famous Vishwarup Mahotsav lecture. That he was explaining this point in Keshavji Gaudiya Math, 1994, the last time that the ISKCON leaders came. After that, all the controversies started. But Gurudev was lecturing on this, and they misunderstood what he told, because he was saying he was mentioning this similar point, right? And he was saying that actually Mahavishnu, Advaita Acharya, he's responsible for the Yuga Dharma in every Yuga. But in this age, that the function of the Yuga Avatar, which is generally an incarnation of Vishnu, which means Advaita Acharya, right? So generally, that would be his function, his responsibility, to teach the Yuga Dharma, to distribute the Yuga Dharma for that age. But as we read already, the time for the appearance of the Yuga Avatar mixed with the time of the appearance of Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, Mahaprabhu performed that function, but not ordinary Nam, not Vaikuntha Nam. But now he's come to give through Nam Braja Prem. This is the difference.
What did they get wrong, the ISKCON?
Because Gurudev said, as he was telling this Siddhanta, and then he interjected and he said, so, Swamiji is only a servant of Mahavishnu, not of Radha and Krishna? He's asking, is that called a rhetorical question, right? So he's asking in that way, right? And what they did, there were some people there from ISKCON who tape recorded it, and then they transcribed it. And they in a faulty way, they transcribed what Gurudev just said. Because Gurudev was asking a rhetorical question, but they turned it into a statement without a question mark at the end.
Gurudev didn't quantify it after he asked that rhetorical question.
I don't know. We'd have to listen to the lecture and tape recording of it
someone
and all
asks a
that.
question like that, then they quantify it.
But they took it out
No,
of
but
context.
he'd already been quantifying it up to that point, and this was his conclusion. So, Swamiji, who took sannyas on this day in Keshavji Gaudiya Math from my Guru Maharaj, who's the acharya that distributed this to the whole world, so is he only a servant of Mahavishnu, not of Radha and Krishna? Gurudev was trying to glorify Prabhupada in that way. And they said, oh, Narayan Maharaj said, you know when I read this? I read this when I returned back to LA. And they were distributing it around in the ISKCON Watsika Boulevard, right? And I saw this, I said, what?
Maharaj,
I was there in that lecture.
they didn't misunderstand. They wanted everyone else to misunderstand.
All right, yeah, I gather that. But yet at the same time, come on, how can you be so deceitful? You know, there's even a recording. So I don't see how they could think that they would get away with it by misquoting and so forth. But anyway, who knows?
Maharaj, it seems like Srila Prabhupada didn't mention this Parakira so much. He couldn't actually present this very much.
No, true.
I don't think I knew anything about that before I met Srila Gurudev.
Yeah.
Krishna wrote it?
Well, we knew.
I'm a little retarded, but...
No, listen, we knew that the gopis, they're being called from their houses with their husbands and family in the rasa dance.
Yeah.
Okay, that's clear.
I just thought that was circumstantial. I didn't know it was...
Yeah, we didn't know all the
part
we didn't know all the details
Yeah.
of that, because that's in so many of the commentaries of all the acharyas on 10th canto, all the pastimes, the Gopi Geet, and all the songs of the Gopi. We were given by Prabhupada a summary study of the 10th canto in the form of the Krishna book. You know? Yeah.
I mean, so much of this, like, because we're reading Chaitanya Charitamrita in the mornings, so much of this is in Prabhupada's purports also to Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yes.
So it's maybe like it's there, but it wasn't so available in all of the lectures.
Well, first of all, Chaitanya Charitamrita was not even available until 1975. We had 1 or 2 volumes.
Teachings of Lord Chaitanya.
Teaching of Lord Chaitanya was, and it's in there.
Yes.
But
we were working so hard, we didn't have time to read. We hardly read Srimad Bhagavatam like a super teacher.
listen, the fact of the matter is, as Gurudev himself has clearly told so many times, that Prabhupada did not have the time to give it because it required more advancement of his disciples. I've heard in places where briefly Prabhupada is telling some of these truths about no one can compare with the love of the gopis. Okay?
Right, of course, yeah.
But, you know, Prabhupada and the topic especially of Parakya Ras, which is always the biggest thing that's misunderstood by the Prakriti Sahajiyas. They pervert it. Prabhupada was very cautious about that. That's why that whole incident in 75, when the Chaitanya Charitamrita was coming out, I was there, you know, and the editors were getting together and reading parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then Prabhupada was told on a morning walk, I think by Ramaswar, that there's this Gopi Bhav Club. They called it the Gopi Bhav Club, that these people. But actually they were just trying to read what was just being printed by Prabhupada. But he presented it like that to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada became very alarmed. He said, this is not good. So Prabhupada had to be extremely protective because he's dealing with people that can't even control their tongue, belly, genitals, the you know, first verse, Vachovega, Manasakrodha, all of these things. Prabhupada knew the level. And it was not really his time to give that. Okay? Prabhupada knew that it will be given in the future as they advance. Obviously it will be given. Why? Because that is why the Acharyas came. This is why Gurudev's pointing this out is so essential that all the acharyas really have come to give this. And, you know, I can say that Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, I haven't heard all of his katha that has been recorded, 1,200 hours, but I heard a few hundred hours of his katha, you know. But he would begin to lay the foundation for accepting this, and you can read it in the final chapter of the Sri Guru and His Grace, which is titled The Line of Sri Rupa, The Line of Sri Rupa. And there he very clearly explains what is our goal, to be under Rupa Manjari, under Srimati Radhika, serving there. And the conception, which is called Radha Dasyam, when I heard from him how he's told in a very specific way that actually this is our goal, Radha Dasyam, more so than Krishna Dasyam, you see? So it's a very delicate subject matter, and it cannot be expressed openly to those who are not yet qualified to hear it and understand it properly. But of course, if a great Rasik Vaishnava is speaking it, those who are not qualified will hear, and they'll get some impression. That was always Srila Gurudev's strategy, always, wherever he went. That I'm speaking what I'm speaking, some will understand, and some others will get impression. He told us many times. Others will get some impression, it will benefit them, you know. I mean, we just had that wonderful festival where all the girls who were acting in the plays were relating their experiences and how they really couldn't quite understand what they're depicting, you know. But impressions were made, and it was very obvious and visible how they were expressing these moods. But they will still also have to go through the whole process and do very deep, intensive bhajan to realize these. But the impressions have been planted in the heart, and that's what Gurudev intended to do, right? So the expansions.
Sorry, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Time for RT. Been doing behind the curtains again. If you want.
That's why I'm looking at them.
Uh-oh. We had to decide again?
Yeah.
Oh no!
Well, if Nanda Gopal doesn't mind.
What time is
Darshan?
Artik supposed to be?
17.
You've had darshan today? This would be your time?
Hmm?
This would be your time for darshan?
Oh, we were at noon Artik.
Okay, then behind the curtains.
I don't know, it's nice opening the curtain. How about 5 more minutes?
That won't be enough.
That won't be enough. What do you need, Mom? Oh,
Well,
it's another-
yesterday we went, you know, while he did the artik, we continued.
So Krishna gets Harikatha and RT at the same time.
That's the kirtan.
I just do behind
And
the
then
curtains.
after,
Oh,
it's still Tulsi Puja and everything.
No.
No, we just keep.
They would do this quite often in Gurudev's Katha in various places.
And in Vrindavan, they would never stop the Katha in any of the mods.
Yeah.
Even by Bhakti Maharaj, I was
Yeah.
there, they never stopped the Katha. They did the arti behind the curtains. It was,
Yeah.
nobody got angry or.
Okay, let me continue. All right? We have the nod of approval. Okay. So, the expansions or manifestations of Mahavishnu, like Advaita Acharya, can preach and distribute the holy name, but they cannot preach Braja Prem through Nam Prem Sankirtan. They can preach and distribute the holy name, but they cannot preach Braja Prem through Nam Prem Sankirtan. There is a vast difference between the Nam Sankirtan of this Kali Yuga and that of other Kali Yugas. This is a speciality of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came along with his followers and associates. Incarnations of Mahavishnu, like Advaita Acharya, and his associates, like Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar, Vishvaksena, and others, all those associates of Mahavishnu. They can perform and establish Nam Sankirtan and Yuga Dharma, but that Nam Sankirtan will not give Krishna Prem or Braja Prem. The Nam Sankirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates has a special power that can give this. Did you know that? I know it, because I heard Gurudev say this, and I noted that. I've put that all in my brain. I filed it. I understand this principle. Of course, realizing it is another thing, you know. Now, he continues with the topic of Unnata Ujjvala Rasa, and he's saying that Unnata Ujjvala Rasa is the special mood of Srimati Radhika, which can be tasted by Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it cannot be distributed. Now here comes this topic. You got that? Unnata Ujjvala Rasa is the special mood of Srimati Radhika. It can be tasted by Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it cannot be distributed. But I thought we already heard that Mahaprabhu came to distribute Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. Now this is very important. He really he clarified this down in Australia on that tour, that it cannot be distributed. So now we're going to hear about that. What did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu give? He did give Unnata Ujjvala Rasa, but Unnata Ujjvala Rasa is of two kinds. Kamatmika, which is relished, and Tat Bhav Ich Atmika, which is distributed. Two types, Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. Now, he goes into this description. Kamatmika is the mood of Srimati Radhika, of Lalita, Vishaka, and the rest of the 8 principal gopis, and other gopis like them. Srimati Radhika has 5 kinds of Sakhis, gopi friends. Sakhi, Nitya Sakhi, Pran Sakhi, Priya Sakhi, and Priya Narma Sakhi. Now this is all topics of which book? Ujjvala Nila Mani. Extensive descriptions of this topic. But Gurudev is just giving some overview so that the devotees who he's teaching this now, that they'll be able to understand, right? So,
we don't have this book in English.
Not yet.
which book? Well, it is translated by Bhanu Swami. He did it a very big, huge, thick translation.
Really?
Yes.
And GBP is doing it.
And Gurudev also wrote, what's it called? Ujjvala Nilamani Kiran. Right.
But it's hard to understand if you haven't read the original.
Yeah. But we have that book.
Yeah.
We have. It's a gigantic. It's like this Gopal Champu one.
I didn't know. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's good stuff.
There's a lot of quotes in Jaiva Dharma.
Oh yes, of course, because the whole last third part is about Rasa Tattva, and especially Madhurya Rasa, right?
So you've read it, Maharaj?
Not the whole thing, no. See, I'm separated by an entire ocean called the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, right. Yeah.
My book is there on my bookshelf.
Oh, no.
I had an intention to read it.
Oh, no.
It is possible to order them. You can have them shipped here from
But
Vrindavan.
GBP is doing it. Madhukar told me they're doing it. Gurudev's translated from the Hindi, so just wait.
I can't wait. I'll have to order them.
The entire Ujjvala Nilamani. He did it in Hindi fully.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
understood.
I've seen the Hindi book, but of course I don't know how much is in there.
And it's going to take them 10 more years, I think.
Yeah, maybe you get the other one?
I'm gonna get the other one.
Okay. Now, 5 kinds of sakis. We might as well quiz each other so that we can kind of remember these. I'm going to tell the first 3. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki. Everyone say. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki. Nitya Saki, Pran Saki. Then Priya Saki and Priya Narma Saki. Priya Saki and Priya Narma Saki. Priya Saki and Priya Narma Saki. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki. Say it. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki. Priya Saki, Priya Narma Saki. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki, Priya Saki, and Priya Narma Saki. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki, Priya Saki, and Priya Narma Saki. It's easy to remember because the last 2 are Priya. And the other ones are Saki, Nitya, and Pran. Okay, anyway, that's our little memorization for now. So now, Priya Narma Sakis. Because we sing that every evening in our arti. Priya Narma Saki Jata Chamara Dulai. Right? So they are also known by another title. Who's known? Priya Narma Sakis are also known as Parama Preshta Sakis. There's a footnote here, but I'm not going to go to that right now. Now Gurudev has now written 5, the different categories, and he's telling a little bit about each. Number 1, Sakis. Dhanishta is an example. Where do we hear the name Dhanishta?
In the pearl castle.
In the what?
And many facets.
She comes every morning.
Is she Krishna's cousin?
Yeah, but there's a song that is sung every day for the deities.
Oh, the
Ajabakatabat Salasrigara.
She brings
Yes,
in
she brings in the remnants
Right.
for Srimati
She
Radhika.
says in Nandagam.
In Nandagam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
She
so
comes
Danish.
every morning to Yavet
Yes.
to give a message to Radhika that Mother Yashoda wants her to come cook.
Okay, now she's in the category of what? Saki. Saki. Dhanishta is an example. These Sakis, the Sakis, they love and they serve Srimati Radhika and Krishna, but they are slightly more inclined towards Krishna, yes. Second category, Nitya Sakis. Now Gurudev is combining the second and third categories, Nitya Sakis and Pran Sakis. These are the only 2 kinds of Sakis who are in the category of Tat Tat Bhav Ich Atmika. It is their service that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ultimately came to bestow upon the jivas. It is their service. The service of who? Nitya and Pran Sakis. Who are in what category? Tat Tat Bhav Ich Atmika. So it is their service that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ultimately came to bestow upon the jivas. So what we call manjaris, they are in those categories, Nitya Sakis and Pran Sakis. Now these Sakis serve both Sri Sri Radha and Krishna with a propensity to favor Srimati Radhika and render service to her. If Krishna calls them, these 2 Sakis, which kind? Nitya and Pran Sakis, if Krishna calls them, what do? They do not come. Krishna calls them, they do not come to him. They obey only her. The Pran Sakis, like Rupa Manjari and Rati Manjari, being even more intimately connected with her, they are naturally leaders of the Nitya Sakis. So here's the difference between the Nitya Sakis and the Pran Sakis. What's the difference?
They're leaders, natural leaders.
Who are?
The Nitya Sakis.
No, the Pran Sakis. They're leaders of the Nitya Sakis.
Marsha, the Nitya Sakis, the Sakis who were originally Bhattacharya's in this material world?
Yeah, that's the category that we can occupy.
Yes.
That will be explained.
The Nitya ones?
No, Nitya Sakis.
Nityasakis. So again, the Pransakis like Rupa Manjari and Rati Manjari, being even more intimately connected with her, Radhika, are naturally leaders of the Nityasakis. Now comes the last two, which are combined together, Priyasakis and Priyanarmasakis. Lalita and Vishaka are examples. Priyanarmasakis. Among these two types of Sakis, the Priyanarmasakis are most dear. Among which two? Priyasakis and Priyanarmasakis. So, both types of Sakis serve the divine couple, Shri Radha and Krishna, with a slight tendency towards Srimati Radhika, but they do not lean solely toward her. This is both types of these Sakis. They serve Radha and Krishna with a slight tendency towards Srimati Radhika, but they do not lean solely toward her. They have so much power that they can sometimes chastise Radhika and at other times chastise Krishna. Now the difference between the Nitya and the Pran Sakis. The difference between the Nitya and the Pran Sakis and the Priya and the Priyanarmasakis, that the Nitya Sakis and the Pran Sakis are Manjaris. That's the difference. They do not do anything for their own personal relationship with Krishna. They do everything for Srimati Radhika. They have no desire to taste Krishna's association for themselves. This bhav or mood, which is called tat bhav ichatmika, is also unnata ujvala rasa. And it is this type of unnata ujvala rasa that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute. There it is. There, very clearly. So in order to know that, even from the viewpoint of memorizing it this is essential. This is essential to know what kind of unnata ujvala rasa Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute. And this is why Gurudev was specifying in the verse of Rupa Goswami that samarpayitum, to give, unnata ujvala rasa, swabhakti, shriyam. So Rupa Goswami has written that. We'll see how Gurudev may highlight those words. I'm not sure if he does that here. So, yes. All right, so this, again I'm reading this sentence. This bhav or mood, which is called tat bhav ich atmika, is also unnata ujvala rasa. And it is this type of unnata ujvala rasa that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute. Okay, what's the other type? Kamatmika. Now Gurudev says, this is a very elevated topic. One may wonder why I am speaking about this topic, since only a few rare persons can truly embrace its essence. The answer is given in the above mentioned verse, where it is implied that in order to perform sadhana, we must first be clear about our objective. For example, if we want money, we may have to serve the government, get a job, or do business. If we do not do business, then we may resort to stealing, or we may get a group of dacoits and forcefully attack others with swords. This is all for what? Money. Okay? Sri Krishna attacked, here's an example now. Sri Krishna attacked Bhishmaka's kingdom, where hundreds of thousands of kings and their armies waited in full force to protect Rukmini from Krishna. However, despite the efforts of those kings, Sri Krishna, like a lion, entering a group of jackals, took Rukmini on his chariot, and he rode to Dwarka, where he married her. So as mentioned above, if someone's goal is to accumulate money, and if by begging he does not get it honestly, then he may get it by hook or by crook. A dog standing outside a sweet shop will drool as he watches people eat rasgulla and rasmalai. And he will not enter the shop, which the owner guards with a stick, but he runs to lick the leaf cups that have been thrown away. And while he is licking the cups, he will try to guard them from any other dog in the vicinity. Similarly, in spiritual life, our objective should be fixed first, and then we can decide how to achieve that objective. Gurudev said so many times, right? First the goal, then the process. So the practice to attain the goal, it is called sadhana, and the goal itself is called sadhya. Without knowledge of one's sadhya, one cannot determine his sadhana. This is why Krishnadas Kaviraj presents the sadhya in the first verse after the Mangala Charana verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 4. No, sorry. Adi Leela, chapter 1, verse 4. And that's this verse that we're discussing, Anarpita Chinuja. So, if your objective is to accept what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, that Unnata Ujjvala Vraja Prem, then come with me to the school of Srila Rupa Goswami. Read all the Goswami's literature and learn how to develop greed for this. There are no rules and regulations for how this eagerness will come. It can manifest by associating with and hearing from a bona fide Vaishnava. It will not awaken by Shastric arguments alone. So, it can manifest by associating with and hearing from a bona fide Vaishnava. It will not awaken by Shastric arguments alone. He gives another example. A very ordinary, ugly, deformed, poor man may see a princess and may have some greed to make her his wife. Although the idea of having her as his wife is absurd, there is no wealth or any other qualification required to have the greed for such a marriage. Similarly, spiritual greed cannot be controlled. It is acquired by hearing about the beauty of Sri Krishna and the affection of the gopis for him as described by the literatures of the Goswamis headed by Srila Rupa Goswami, and also by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Such literatures also describe how Krishna was controlled by the gopis, and especially by Srimati Radhika. They describe how he places his head at Radhika's lotus feet, begging for her mercy. And by hearing the topics of Chaitanya Charitamrita and the books of Srila Rupa Goswami from a pure devotee, greed may come, whether or not one is otherwise qualified for it, whether or not one is a pure devotee. Let's analyze this sentence. There are probably some people who won't agree with what is being stated here. But Gurudev is telling this is how the greed will come. By hearing the topics of Chaitanya Charitamrita and the books of Srila Rupa Goswami from a pure devotee, greed may come, whether or not one is otherwise qualified for it, and whether or not one is a pure devotee. And when greed comes, one becomes qualified to choose his means of practice, sadhana. He immediately achieves ruchi, a natural taste for hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., and thus he gallops toward his goal. So here Gurudev is saying, he immediately achieves ruchi, a natural taste for hearing, chanting, remembering, and thus he gallops toward his goal. When greed comes, one becomes qualified to choose his means of practice. Gurudev also told, I just remember him telling it here on the morning walk, that ruchi can touch, he used this terminology, that ruchi can touch even in a lower stage. Even though ruchi is a very higher and advanced stage, but he said it can touch even in the stage of anartha nivritti. It can touch. How will that happen? That ruchi can touch there by hearing, right? From the association of a Rasik Vaishnava, some touch will come. That's what we're talking about. That's the whole strategy of Srila Gurudev's entire preaching mission. You were going to say? So, those who practice sadhana bhajan of Krishna out of fear of going to hell, they are practicing what is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Why? Why is there fear of going to hell? Because if I don't do this, I'll get punished. Vaidhi, rules and regulations, are like the law courts. It's like, okay, this is a law, and there is a rule of law, like we're hearing that term all the time nowadays, the rule of law, that the law is ruling over, and if you don't follow it, then you have to get the result of not following, right? So the whole universe is completely controlled by this law of action and reaction, right? Everything is going on by karma and kala, time. Like Bhagavad Gita, 5 topics, So, but Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, which we will see the reflection of that in other religions. And they advocate fear. Like the Bible advocates that one must fear God. Fear means obedience also. In the military, is there fear of getting punished if you don't obey the officer? Huh?
For some, yeah.
Okay, but still, it's a general principle from the day that you enter into boot camp, that I am your master. You have to obey, right? Isn't it? It's not like they're coming and massaging you and, oh, you're such a nice person, now we're going to teach you all this. No. They break down the false ego right from the very beginning. At least we've seen this in movies and things like that, right? But fear is there when there's a very great superior power. It's the nature of that is fear, because we see that even in the universal form chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that Arjuna actually, he was trembling, because it's so awesome for a jiva to experience the infinite, right? Because the jiva is finite. And when the infinite begins to manifest, then there is fear. automatically. How great, how powerful. Even when we see, like when I was in Puri with the hurricane, and that's just one little tiny pin, the head of a pin on the surface of this globe, but it came forcefully in, and when I looked out that window and I saw, you know, it's fearful. Even a thunderclap, right? Power. Yeah. So fear automatically comes. So what Gurudev is pointing out is that those who practice sadhana bhajan of Krishna, out of fear of going to hell, they are practicing what is called Vaidhi Bhakti. And that means that if I don't practice bhakti, then I'll be involved in sinful life and I'll go to hell. Right? Right. So such persons, they have the propensity to perform Vaidhi Bhakti. Practicing because greed has arisen in the heart, that is called Raganuga Bhakti. That's the difference. There is a difference between Ragatmika, which is the mood of the gopis themselves, and Raganuga devotees, those who are performing bhajan with greed to attain that mood. Now he's specifying, because Ragatmika is directly the mood of the gopis themselves, but Raganuga, they are performing bhajan with a greed to attain that mood. So those in this world who are at the advanced stage of asakti, attachment for Krishna, and who are just reaching the stage of bhav, they are Raganuga. That is Raganuga. Those devotees who have not reached this stage, but who are developing some greed, and here in parentheses they have the term Raganuga pravritti. Okay? So those devotees who have not reached this stage, but who are developing some greed, Raganuga pravritti, they will soon become qualified to practice Raganuga bhakti.
Pravritti means path?
Pravritti, no, not path. The tendency, pravritti.
Oh, okay.
Raganuga pravritti. You haven't yet reached Raganuga, but they're using this term, Raganuga pravritti, that you are executing the regulative principles and all the limbs of bhakti.
And greed is there.
What?
Greed is there.
No.
In pravritti? No?
No. It says they are developing some greed. They have not reached this stage yet, but they are developing some greed. So, and then there's the Raganuga pravritti in parentheses. They will soon become qualified to practice Raganuga bhakti. But we already heard that what is Raganuga bhakti? Those in this world who are at the advanced stage of asakti, attachment for Krishna, and who are just reaching the stage of bhav. They are Raganuga. Because their entire being is absorbed 24 hours a day. They're getting spurtis of their own spiritual form and the leelas of Radha and Krishna. So that's actual Raganuga, because they're following entirely the moods of the Ragatmika associates of Radha and Krishna, and aspiring for those moods. Yes. So he says here, there is a difference between Ragatmika, which is the mood of the gopis themselves, and Raganuga devotees, those who are performing bhajan with greed to attain that mood. There is a difference. Ragatmika and Raganuga. Those in this world who are at the advanced stage of asakti and who are just reaching the stage of bhav are Raganuga. Those devotees who have not reached this stage but who are developing some greed, Raganuga pravritti, they will soon become qualified to practice Raganuga bhakti. They are not practicing Raganuga yet, but they are approaching it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came only to bestow this greed. to those who already have greed. He came to give them bhav. So Mahaprabhu has come only to bestow this greed, and to those who already have greed, then he came to give them bhav. And to those who have bhav, he came to give them prem. What kind of prem does he give? Not Srimati Radha's mood of Unnata Ujjvala Kamatmika Bhav. No, not that mood. But the mood of Unnata Ujjvala Tat Tat Bhav Ich Atmika. Although this is a difficult subject to understand, it is essential for us to try to understand it. After 10 or 20 years, or in a future life, in the association of elevated Unnata Vaishnavas, we will be able to realize something of it. A sincere, aspiring devotee tries to develop this greed. He prays, I am not a Raganuga Vaishnava, but I beg that in this life, or if I am not qualified then, even in 1,000 lives from now, that I may receive the mercy to become a Raganuga Vaishnava. I want nothing other than this, nothing else. I do not mind dying, but I do mind taking water from anywhere other than Keshi Ghat or Manasa Ganga Ghat or any Ghat, bathing place of the Tat Tat Bhav Ichatmika Gopis. Now I will explain the original verse under discussion. Anarpita chirim chirat karunaya vatirna kalo samarpaitum unatojvala rasam sobhakti shriyam Hari purata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipita sada hridaya kandare spuratuva sachinandananaha. I just want to mention, this is probably, in all the months that I've been here, one of the most important classes. I'm not saying that I'm giving this class. Readings, study session is probably one of the most important. And there has to be a certain level of devotee who this is being studied by. So now we're reading the translation that Srila Prabhupada gave for this verse in Chaitanya Adi Lila, chapter 1, verse 4. May that Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, be transcendentally situated in the innermost chambers of your heart, resplendent with the radiance of molten gold. He has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. This verse is from the Mangalacharan of Srila Rupa Goswami's Vidagdha Madhava. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspired Rupa Goswami in Prayag to fulfill his desire to distribute Unnata Ujjvala Parakiya Bhav. He inspired Rupa Goswami there in Prayag to fulfill his desire to distribute Unnata Ujjvala Parakiya Bhav, and along with this, to distribute knowledge to the jivas about what he tasted. So,
Who tasted?
About what Mahaprabhu tasted. So, the Mangala Charana of Rupa Goswami's Vidagdha Madhava, which is inspired by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to fulfill his desire to distribute Unnata Ujjvala Parakiya Bhav. And along with this, to distribute knowledge to the jivas about what he tasted. what Mahaprabhu tasted.
Thank you.
So this bhav is unparalleled. Which bhav? Unnata Ujjvala Parakiya bhav. It is unparalleled even in Goloka Vrindavan, what to speak of in this world. Even in Goloka Vrindavan, this is unparalleled. I won't go that much longer if anybody is wondering. This praying is the eternal religion, the Nitya Dharma of all fortunate living entities, not just those in human bodies. If a husband who has affection for his wife sees that his wife has affection for another man, he will be upset. Similarly, if the wife knows that her husband internally loves someone else, she will be upset. Either way, their entire life together will be disturbed. We see the relationship of husband and wife, lover and beloved, not only in humans, but in creatures, creepers and trees. Without this loving relationship, one cannot live. Trees and creepers also have this affection, but they cannot express it. Humans can express it to a certain extent. And the perverted reflection of praying, which is pure spiritual love, the perverted reflection is the desire to satisfy the body. And this is called kam, lust. Because lust is not pure, it causes pain, suffering, and problems. Is that true? Lust causes pain, suffering, and problems because it's not pure. That's not pure. So, because lust is not pure, it causes pain, suffering, and problems. In this world, it is seen that a man cannot fully satisfy a woman and vice versa. And after some time, he or she will become dissatisfied and may look for someone else. We are refugees here in this material world. Because of lust, we are imprisoned here, seeking satisfaction in a wife, husband, children, mother, father, friends, and worldly objects. And Krishna arranges for us to taste the result of such material attachment. Satisfaction is only possible when one has affection for Krishna. Otherwise, no one can be satisfied. When Lord Ram and his own Srimati Sita Devi came to this world, they both played a role, and they taught us worldly jivas the result of lust. They taught us that lust is a very bad thing. When Ram, Sita, Lakshman were in the jungle, the demon Maricha came in the form of a golden deer. Sita saw the deer and told Ram, I want this deer. You can catch it alive, or you can shoot it and bring his skin. Lakshman warned Ram not to follow the deer. Lakshman said, he is actually a demon, not a deer. Lakshman told Ram, that demon will cause you many problems. Don't go. It is better to disobey your wife. Although Ram is the Supreme Lord Krishna himself, and is therefore not controlled by Maya, he showed the conditioned jivas what happens when a man comes under the control of a woman's material desires. The result is problems. Ram replied to Lakshman, I must carry out the order of my wife, even if the deer is a demon. Ram went after the deer, and as a result he had to leave Sita twice. Which twice?
When Ravana took her,
Yes.
then when the complaint came in Ayodhya
Yes.
about that.
Yes. So, yes. Ram went after the deer, and as a result, he had to leave Sita twice. Finally, he had to leave her forever, due to others doubting her purity after she had spent some days with Ravan. She was pure, but because others doubted her chastity, Ram felt he needed to consider the mood of those citizens and abandon her. He sent her into the forest, and then he lamented deeply. Ram lived in a royal palace, and Sita lived in the forest in the ashram of Valmiki, sleeping on a grass mat and cutting wood for cooking. Ram repented. I have sent Sita to the jungle, so I will also live as a renunciate and not taste any material comforts. He stayed alone in his palace, sleeping on a mat on the floor. Sita slept easily, but Ram could not. He always wept, "Oh Sita, oh Sita, oh Sita. I made a mistake by trying to satisfy my subjects." Sita was consoled by Valmiki, but there was no one to console Ram, no one to wipe away his tears. He wept constantly, and one who knows the heart of Ram will also weep bitterly. Once, Ram performed the Rajsuya Yajna, a sacrifice, on the bank of the river Gomati, near Naimisharanya. All of his subjects, including his mothers, brothers, monkeys, Hanuman and Sugriva, Vibhishan, they all assembled there. The yajna was conducted from early morning until 10 o'clock, after which everyone assembled to hear narrations from the Puranas. And one day, the twin sons of Ram and Sita, named Lava and Kush, they arrived in that assembly. They were about 9 years old, and they closely resembling Ram himself, they were very beautiful. No one knew who they were or from where they had come. And playing on venas, they began to recite the Ramayana, which they had heard in the ashram of Valmiki. They sang in a melodious tune, as with a veena, wherein high sounds trembled down to low ones in a rag suitable for spiritual lamentation, Karuna Ras. Their singing was so sweet that all those present were stunned in silence. They sang about the pastime in which Sita, Ram, and Lakshman, in the dress of renunciants, left Ayodhya for the forest under the order of Kaikeyi, at which time King Dasarath lamented, "Alas, Ram, alas, Ram," and immediately left the world. As Lavan Kush sang, Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, Kaikeyi, Hanuman, Sugriva, the entire audience were captivated and wept bitterly. They felt that if the pastime was taking place, they felt that as if the pastime was taking place right before their eyes. As the day drew to a close, Ram sent Lakshman to give Love and Kush a donation of a pot of gold coins, fine silken cloth, and golden ornaments. Lakshman descended from his throne and asked them, "My dear boys, please tell your father's name and where you are from. Lord Ram wants to know your identity." The boys were silent at first, and then they said, "You know the Vedas. You are a learned person, so you must know that it is not proper etiquette to inquire from a brahmachari or a sannyasi about his father and mother, wife, daughters, or sons. You don't know this etiquette? We are two brahmacharis. You may therefore inquire about the name of our Gurudev, or the whereabouts of our ashram, or request us to speak Harikatha. We are disciples of Valmiki. We have come from his ashram, and we have learned these songs from him." Lakshman became speechless, ashamed that he had asked this question. He thought, yes, what they are saying is correct. One should not say to a brahmachari or sannyasi, "Oh Maharaj, you are still married? Your wife and sons are still there?" So Lakshman, he then requested them, "Please accept this golden pot containing jewels and golden ornaments." And the boys replied, "We are simple brahmacharis. What use do we have for such opulent gifts? We eat fruit, and without a use of a vessel, we drink water from our hands. Please return these gifts to Ram, who is a king and has use for them." Love and Kush then returned to their mother, who had been anxiously waiting for them. Taking the boys in her arms, one in her left arm, other in her right, she caressed them, and she asked, "O sons, why have you come home so late today?" And they said, "Today, mother, we went far away to the assembly of a king. The boys did not know the king's name. There we sang the pastimes of Sita and Ram. We don't know why, but everyone present was weeping. The king himself, his brother, even the monkeys. And while there we saw something very unusual. There was a golden statue that looked exactly like you, with the same face and same beauty, but whereas you speak, this statue did not." Now Sita began to weep bitterly. The boys asked her, "Mother, why are you weeping?" But she could not explain to them Ram's banishment of her. The next day Ram said to Valmiki, "I know that Sita is staying in your ashram. Please bring her to Ayodhya immediately. I cannot live without her." And the following day, Sita arrived in Ayodhya with Love and Kush holding her hands. Looking down at the ground as she walked, she followed Valmiki and silently entered Ram's kingdom, wondering what was going to happen. Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, Kaushalya, and others eagerly gazed at the sight of Sita returning to Ayodhya. The Lord's associates now assumed that the two boys must be the sons of Ram, because they were so beautiful. They could not possibly be the sons of any other. Ram approached Sita, and he said, "Please show me proof that you are pure, that you have never been touched by Ravan." Sita responded in a mild voice with honor for Ram, "Do you not accept the proof of my purity from Dasarath Maharaj and Agnidev? I will now give you proof." She then prayed, "O Prithvi, personified earth planet, you are my mother. If I am pure, if I have never known anyone except Ram, if my heart has never touched anyone else, even for a moment, then please open and take me in your lap." She said this 3 times. Then at once, with a great sound, the earth divided into 2, and a beautiful golden chariot appeared. Prithvi Devi took Sita on her lap, and the earth closed. Ram immediately jumped up, crying, "O Sita, 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 you have left me. O mother-in-law Prithvi Devi, return my Sita, or I will shoot you and break you into pieces. I want to see Sita at once." Valmiki approached Ram, and he said, "Ram, do not be so distressed. Go to Sita. She is waiting for you in your abode." In this way, Ram is showing the world the result of lust. Do not do as I have done, otherwise there will be so many problems. He's showing this to the world. In order to be happy, try to attain pure love for Krishna. Material love is an endeavor to gratify selfish desires, whereas pure Krishna prema is the opposite. Free from the slightest taint of any selfishness. In order to reveal to the jivas their eternal, natural dharma, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended to this world. And this world is like a school. Let us not waste this good opportunity to practice bhakti yoga in the association of pure devotees who are free from politics, hypocrisy, duplicity, and diplomacy. It is essential to understand that Braja Prem is our eternal dharma. And in order to be happy forever, we will have to achieve it. We must not allow lust to create a disturbance in our life. If one is married, that is all right. There is no harm in that, as long as the husband treats his wife as one who is dear to Krishna and serving her with love and affection, but reserving his real inner affection for Krishna. This world is a training center. We must not become entangled in it, otherwise we will have endless problems. One may perform one's duty, maintaining one's family members, for wealth is also not detrimental if it is utilized properly. Our family is not meant to fulfill our lust. While serving our family, we must practice bhakti and thus make this world like Vaikuntha, the Lord's spiritual abode. Gaur Premanande. So that's the end of that chapter, and it went over time, but it was worth it.
That was the first lecture? The first lecture you did?
I think so. On this topic. He gave Guru Tattva lecture before. Yeah. I've skipped a little forward into the book. Okay. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Vinod Bihari Radha Govinda Jiu Ki Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gurudeva Ki Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamritam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Vansha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Rama Saki Shiromani Radhe Radhe, Ashta Saki Shiromani Radhe Radhe, Ashta Saki Shiromani Radhe Radhe, Ashta Saki Shiromani Radhe Radhe, Jaya Kanumana Mohini Radhe Radhe, Kanumana Mohini Radhe Radhe, Kanumana Mohini Radhe Radhe, Jaya Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe, Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe, Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe, Govinda Nandini Radhe Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sachinanda, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinanda, Jaya Gaura Hari, Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara, Parampara, Guru Parampara, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Shri Sachinandana Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai,